Okay, thank you very much for this occasion. I'm Atsuko Ichijo from Kingston University, and I'm particularly pleased to be here today because we are having induction at the moment, and we're in crisis, and we are having a crisis departmental meeting at this point, which I escaped, and enjoying learning about civilizations and being pessimistic and blat and etc. etc. So I hope that I can reciprocate my enjoyment so far with something from my talk. I'll be looking today. We'll be looking at the question about whale meat eating, and this is coming from the book we did. We meaning myself and Atlanta, Food, National Identity and Nationalism. This is a kind of mystery because it came out November last year, carrying a date, a publication date of 2016. So I lost a publication for last year and gained one for this year. The aims of the book is to look at to explore the under-researched area in the study of nationalism, food and nationalism, and as we all know here, I suppose, that although there is plenty of work on food and identity in general, especially in anthropology, and possibly in social history, not many systematic study of food and national identity or nationalism there. So we just wanted, first of all, to do fill the gap with this book. And also we wanted, as we go along working on this book, we realized this axis, food and nationalism, seems to be a very useful angle to cut across, to try to look at what's happening at the different levels of politics. And so in the book, we'll be looking at also starting from everyday instances to the global era. And part of what I'm presenting today is from chapter 7, I think, where we are looking at kind of a food and nationalism at the international stage. So what I was looking at is how it came about, the transformation of whaling problem, namely trying to conserve species of whale to the whale meat eating problem. That's what I want to look at. On March 31st, 2014, the International Court of Justice delivered its judgment in the case of concerning whaling in Antarctic, in bracket, Australia v. Japan, New Zealand intervening, end bracket. It found that Japan's whaling program in Antarctic, called JAPRA 2, was not in accordance with the three provisions of the schedule to the International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling. Put it more simply, the court found that the Japanese government, government termed as scientific whaling, did not comply with the International Whaling Commission's regulations, to which Japanese government had signed up, and ordered Japanese government to stop whaling in Antarctic. Upon the delivery of the judgment, the Chief Cabinet Secretary of Japanese government issued a statement expressing their regret over the judgment, but confirming to abide by the judgment as a Japanese state that places a great importance on the international legal order and rule of law as a basis of international community. As presented both by the court and Japanese government, the ruling was about legality of whaling, an issue of international law, and not about whale meat eating. And the Japanese government's response even emphasized this presentation of Japan as a good and conscientious member of the international community. However, by the time the ruling was delivered, the whaling problem had become deeply entangled with the issue of culture, and as shown in the minutes of the agriculture, forest, and fishery committees meetings in Japan of Japanese Diet after following the ruling, contains a phrase that, given that whaling is part of Japan's unique traditional culture, revealing that Japanese government understood court's judgment as pertaining to Japanese culture, including whale meat eating, not just about whaling itself. Okay. Yes, sorry, I should skip that. Okay, whaling program. The whaling this whole thing started as the whaling program. Whales were valuable resources for a number of countries in the world. The industrialization of whaling intensified in the 19th century by the Norwegian invention of cannon-fired harpoons, not Japanese thing. And the whaling worldwide was disrupted basically by 2 world wars. And then comes this post-war recovery in whale catch. The amount of whale catch has jumped up in the immediate aftermath of Second World War, and which led to the concern over whale resource management. And then it took this so-called international community started to take actions in the form of drafting of the International Convention of Regulation of Whaling, and the establishment of IWC, and then this was followed by scaling down of commercial whaling in the UK, the Netherlands, and Norway, and stopped whaling in Antarctic. So with the development and introduction of various products that replaced whale-derived products, concern over whale resource management became stronger. And in the meantime, in the 1970s, what we have seen is that the rise of environmental and conservationist movements. And in terms of whaling, more decisively, the US government's change of heart in terms of whale protection, and which led to the moratorium of commercial whaling, which was adopted by the IWC in 1982 on the basis of concern over possible extension of whales. So at this point of time, ostensibly the issue is about resource management or kind of protection of a species rather than anything else. However, there is a scholarly consensus that the current whaling problem boils down to ethical and cultural issues, in particular when it manifests vis-a-vis Japan for some reasons. And one of the commentators, regular kind of usual suspects from Japan, has identified four aspects to this concern. That there is a scientific concern that whether whale population is on the decline or increase. There is a cultural ethical collision, that whether it is right to kill whales and eat whale meat. And there is a political issue that the Western politicians are appealing to anti-whaling constituencies, and there is an issue of economics. So excuse me. Not killing whales has became the default option by the end of the 1980s, and as it is, the original concern was about managing the particular resource called whales and try to prevent the extinction of this particular species. Additional area of concern, which is killing whale itself, it's wrong, has has risen, and whaling became a binary good over which compromise was difficult to reach. And then, the emergence of a global anti-whaling norm transforming whales into rights-bearing persons, sacred human-like creatures whose killing is immoral and uncivilized. So what's taking place at the same time? So there was a taboo on. So the taboo on killing whales became a taboo on eating whale meat itself. While this is happening in somewhere else, elsewhere, in Japan, in response to the rise of this kind of culturalist argument, there is also the mobilization of discourse of cultural rights that try to reposition whale meat in Japanese history. The familiar narrative in Japan about whale meat is that people in this inhabited in Japanese archipelago had long engaged with whaling going back to Jomon period, which is about 12,000 to 300 BC. And some of those living in the coastal areas were continuously engaged with whaling on a smaller scale. The message is that the Japanese have been continuously engaged in whaling, suggesting that there is a long tradition, a cultural good of whaling, and that they have been eating them as fish. And this is an interesting issue about the Japanese, that the Chinese characters used to describe whale has the warhen, the left-hand side stands for fish. So the argument is that traditionally speaking, in Japanese culture, whales are understood as fish, not as mammals. Therefore, killing mammals is fine. Killing fish is fine. It's not bad thing. But killing mammals may be wrong. So one of the discourses emerging in Japan, while this idea of not killing whale as the default option in elsewhere, that's the idea that in Japan there is a different conception of what whale is. So therefore, it is seen as an imposition, Western imposition, that environmental activists or conservationists trying to say that killing whale is the wrong thing, even though it may be based on so-called scientific argument. And so these things, while this is happening, there is a change in the popular perception of what whale meat stands for. People have forgotten that whale meat, the consumption of whale meat, was not widespread until the end after this end of the Second World War. In the aftermath of the Second World War, GHQ actively encouraged whaling as a kind of source of protein for starving Japanese population, etc., etc. And that's when kind of mass consumption of whale meat took place. But now most of the people believe that those Japanese used to eating whale meat for ages and ages, and it is now also a high-end food item. It's something you don't get from normal places. You have to go to kind of as Ionia was saying something about the blood. It's something you get to eat in a very kind of fashionable high-end restaurants rather than normal day-to-day as a food item. And approval of support for amongst young people, the support for whaling goes with the approval of whale meat eating. So what is trying to say is the whaling is also seen as whale meat eating in Japan, and it is understood, increasingly understood within this framework, the idea of cultural rights, that this is our rights to stick to our culture. And one of the things you can see that the Japan Fishery Agency, which apparently is behind all this, is reproducing, typing out this kind of narrative again and again, that whaling in Japan has a long history, and our culture, traditional culture, has a lot of affinity with living with whales and using whales. And one of the interesting aspects of it is that we in Japan never wasted any part of whales. In Western countries, they just took oil, and the rest is thrown away. The meat was not eaten, was not for human consumption. But in Japan, from top to bottom, everything was consumed. Nothing went waste. Therefore, we were doing more ethical things than Western countries, etc., etc. So in Japan, the whale meat is now representing Japanese uniqueness and its long tradition and culture. And on the other hand, in the anti-whaling countries, the whales have become the totemic animal, talked about in anthropomorphic language, to be approached with affection, respect, and awe. And eating whale meat has become associated with being uncivilized, barbaric, cruel, and belonging to the Japanese tribe. And this is particularly kind of evident in kind of Australian, for some reason, Australian environmental kind of circle. But there's a huge discrepancies emerging between amongst Japanese population who may not really like whale meat in any case, like myself and my parents, and etc., etc. And all those people who think that whales are human-like, rights-bearing animals, we shouldn't be touched, etc., etc. So this case study shows that initially a cultural agreement about sustainability of whaling has been transformed into a highly emotive clash of norms and values in which various nationalisms became mobilized. On the Japanese side, whaling has become a deeply ingrained part of the unique culture of Japan, which demands respect as the dispute has dragged on despite the fact that demand for whale meat is stagnated and whaling industry is no longer self-sustaining. Whaling Japan is only sustained by public subsidy to protect Japanese unique culture from Western cultural imperialism. Sorry, where am I? Whaling, including eating of whale meat, has been made to represent something unique about Japanese culture, and the pro-whaling lobby, led by Japan Fisheries Agency, has been demanding international recognition that is due to proper nation. On the anti-whaling side, the fact that whale meat was never incorporated in their diet has helped the emergence and spread of the anthropomorphic view of whales as rights-bearing persons, which have branded eating whale meat as uncivilized, barbaric, and cruel, something that needs to be stopped. In this case, the opposition is found between Japan and the West, rather than two distinct nationalisms. So it's a more kind of civilizational context in which this opposition is doing. And what is happening here is that both sides is using Western-centric, universalistic ideas about rights, that it's cultural rights for Japanese people to keep hunting whale and keep eating it because it's their tradition, etc., etc. on the other hand, anti-whaling nations, West, so-called West, it's using another version of rights-based argument that the whales are the right-bearing animals, therefore shouldn't be killed. So the dry resource management question has become a clash of values. And what is interesting is that you can see similar pattern in the dog meat eating controversy, etc. So when you're looking at what I'm trying to say is that when you're looking at taboos about what is not, what can be eaten, what cannot be eaten, what is interesting to see is that increasingly the global kind of emergence of human rights discourse, basically rights-based discourse, either about cultural rights or rights of certain animals, the self-determination of animals, etc., or kind of human stewardship or whatever it is, seems to be very much entangled with something very mundane and everyday, as it was said earlier, as to eating and what to be eaten. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? First at the back.
Thank you, that's so good. Hello. Also, thanks for introducing the book as well. I had a question about the issue of whale hunting and the communities that hunt whales. I mean, how has that affected the economy and, say, the social links within those communities? I mean, is that an issue that comes up?
Okay, I think there are coastal villages in Japan, especially across the Pacific Ocean side. They do have tradition of small-scale whaling, but their boat is small. They don't have this industrial things. And I think some of the communities are really trying to mobilize this idea of indigenous people's rights. People in Canada or Greenland can hunt whales because it is presented and justified as a part of their tradition, the culture of life. But doesn't apply to these communities because they're Japanese or they're part of the industrial nations or whatever it is. So yes, but it's in terms of economic magnitude, it's minor. It's really minor. It is going, and I don't think probably this kind of breaking even on a local scale doesn't have any impact on the economy as such.
I grew up in Provincetown on Cape Cod, which back in the early part of the 19th century was the whaling center of the world, before Gloucester. Back in those days, whale meat was a byproduct which was thrown overboard. They were harvested for their oil in vast quantities. We've now reached the point where the harvesting of whales as a luxury food product is just a part of the total destruction of the ocean, which we are doing to a point which we have no idea of because it's invisible to our eyes. It's underneath. And the whale oil, of course, was replaced by carbon oil, which is itself has become destructive and indefensible. And I think that to look upon the consumption of whale meat as something cultural, I regard it as a small byproduct of the question of human survival on a bigger scale.
Yeah, so that's exactly the point. Those people who support whaling in Japan will make that the Japanese never wasted whale products. So we are doing more ecological things, and they cannot argue. Japan has suspended commercial whaling. What they do is so-called scientific whaling, which is try to kind of figure out whether the whale population is declining or rising, etc., and according to them, minke whale population is apparently recovering, others not, and that's what they. In Japanese, I think it has resumed the scientific whaling last year. It's trying to do again. So Japanese government's position is definitely acknowledging the fact that yes, whale populations are going to have declined, but some of them may not. And if that is the case, why can't we do it? Because it is a part of our culture. And if you say you cannot do it, the argument by the US of anti-whaling countries tend to be presented as cultural argument, that it's barbaric to kill whales, it's barbaric to eat whale meat. And that's how, so if it is presented that way, the reaction would be, why is it barbaric? You used to waste it.
Just a naive question, thank you for your talk. The United Nations actually voted against Japanese plea to be able to keep whaling or keep doing research. What actually is going on right now? Are they actually still scientifically whaling, or is that completely suspended as well?
According to Japanese government, you presumed last year, it is scientific. So
Right,
the idea
the
is
UN
that,
voted against that too.
I mean, I said, yes, definitely. That's,
They're still doing it.
Interesting. Yes.
Final comment, Andrew?
Yeah, the point about whether they're fish or mammals in traditional classification is very interesting. But I suppose we'd agree that it doesn't make any difference to a logical argument, because most of us are eating mammals all the time. So it would really be just as an argument. It would be we don't want whales to be eaten. Here's a reason why they shouldn't. It's finding a reason, I suppose. Would we agree on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the idea, what the Japanese government or Japan Fisheries Agency is trying to say is that eating fish is apparently okay across the world. Eating certain mammals seems to be not good.
Yes, certainly.
Okay, but in our view, it's fish. So what's the problem?
Yes.
What does it taste like?
I can't really remember. I was fed a few times in school, at school, and I just didn't like it.
It's a big animal. The back of the whale doesn't taste anything like the front of the whale. It's very far apart.
Yeah, not many. Okay, I think I'm perhaps the last of this generation which was exposed to whale meat compulsorily almost at school dinners, but many people just don't know how to take
It's
it.
slightly sweet and delicate in
Is it?
flavor. I had it in Norway.
All right. No. So.
Thank you very much. For this.